welcome Charlie Cox to the stage. So exciting. There will be, I'm going to ask a few questions and then
hi guys.
we'll have time for some. Guys, welcome to Galaxycon. How has it been for you so far? It's early doors, so you know there's not been much going on at the moment, but have you had a chance to meet anyone yet?
No, well, I know him. Actually, I rode over with Shatner.
Oh, nice. What was that like?
I'm a huge fan. It was fun.
Amazing. Did you ask him any Star Trekky questions, or were you just playing it cool?
I've met, we've hung out before, and that's when I completely nerded out, so I didn't go there this time.
Cool. So the first layer was gone, you're down to the normal layer. Charlie, last time we spoke, it was last year in London, and you were in that Spider-Man No Way Home zone where you couldn't say anything. You were like, can't say a thing, can't say anything. I mean, did you kind of know that everyone might have known something? Like, how was your feeling when you were keeping that secret at the time?
Well, there's always rumors on the internet, and every time someone, like a friend of mine or a family member sends me a rumor, I'm always like in fear that it's my fault somehow. That it came out, that I said it to someone by mistake. So it's always, whenever something gets released, I'm always hugely relieved that it's like, now that secret's done and we can move on to the next secret.
Yeah, because it must be, you can't, do you not even tell your mums, your dads? Can you not even tell like your partners? Like no one?
No, you have to tell some people.
Yeah.
Not your mums, not my mum.
This guy, he would just do straight up jumps in the air, land on the desk, and he's like talking to me, and I'm like, oh my god, this is who I'm fucking dealing with? This is awesome. I was so happy. And we were able to do the scene, and the scene worked, and I was able to watch Charlie act as Daredevil in the Daredevil costume.
Well, in the black one.
In the black one, yeah. And get familiar with him for the first time as my predecessor. What is it? You would be my, what do you call it?
Nemesis. Arch nemesis.
Arch nemesis, yeah. And so it was really cool. I was very impressed. It was a really good way to start.
But I don't know if you remember, but before you weren't shooting, I was shooting, but you were there reading with me. But before we started the day, I brought in one of the, I think it's from Return of the King, I think. One of the comics where Daredevil and Fisk are on the cover and they're shaking hands or they're clasping hands. You know that one? And I gave it to you as a gift. That's cool.
Are there any moments?
I actually have it in my office. It's up in my office.
Are there any moments because this is a great job to have, but it's a weird job. I find myself sometimes in situations where I'm going, what the am I doing? This is so weird. If you had any moments like that in Daredevil where you're filming an intense scene, it's really intense, and then you have this brain fart moment where you're like, this is weird. What am I doing? Have you ever had anything like that?
All the time. All the time. Every time I put the suit on,
yeah.
I'm like, I'm 40 years old, what am I doing? Yeah, actually, I was trying on something recently, which I won't talk about, but I FaceTime with my son and my daughter, my son's only 3, and he was so sweet. He was watching me try this outfit on, and of course he was like trying to figure it out. He had all these questions, and the first question was, "Daddy, can you fly?" And I felt myself not wanting to let him down, so I ended up saying, well, not right now.
You watch Daddy break a leg.
And the times that I feel most weird with Fisk is, the only time I really feel like what you were just talking about, your question, is that when he's in a normal kind of life situation, he's such an odd dude, he's so bizarre, and he's just so not, he's really socially inept,
Yeah.
you know, and so that, it's always like, I'm like, this guy, like in my head, like when I'll finish the scene, he is so bizarre, like in my head, I'm like, this is so weird to play him in a normal circumstance, you know? And because he's just not fit for normal circumstances, but that's the best situation to be in, is to put a guy like that in a normal circumstance. So that's when I feel like, what am I doing? This is crazy.
Yeah. I wanted to ask, like, you know, you live with those characters and you have for a while, and you will be going forward. And so I wanted to ask, you know, what do you take away as not just actors, but as people from those characters? You know, there's a little bit of you there, and there maybe, maybe not, but do you take anything away from that? What have you learned from those roles?
I think inevitably you do. I'm not sure you're always conscious of what that is. I certainly feel like sometimes I'll read a scene that they've written for Matt, and it takes me by surprise, how they presented him in that moment, his attitude towards something, and I'll find myself kind of being open-minded about that and being like, wow, that's an interesting way to handle that situation. And so sometimes I feel like you almost by a process of osmosis, you learn stuff from these characters. But like I said, I'm not sure you're always conscious of it.
No, not at all. What about you, Vincent? Anything to add?
I mean, I'm thinking about your question, and I keep thinking of everything we're doing right now when we're shooting, and because it's not the Netflix show, I'll say that, and I can't say anything.
I'm like sweating as you're saying.
I was trying to articulate that I'm learning things now that I didn't learn on the Netflix show in the way that you put it in that context.
Yeah.
But, and that's the only thing that's on my mind now, so I can't say anything about it.
I've also been more, I'm kind of like, I'm grasping the chair, I'm like, I told you guys, come, we've got this, we've got this. One more question before we hand over to you lovely patient folks there. Guys, like, is there anything that you learned in your time on the show, any skills in particular that you learned, any special skills? I know your characters are very different, that you went, oh, I'm pretty good at that, actually. Surprised myself there. I'll start with you, Charlie, because you'd have to learn a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I'm not sure there's anything that's jumping to mind that I feel like, oh, I'm pretty good at that. I mean, I really enjoyed the stunt work, and I've definitely got much better at it. You know, but when we were shooting the show before, there was a sequence in the second episode that we shot early on in the process, and I really wasn't able to do much of it at all. As much as I wanted to, I couldn't really get involved. And by the end of the last season, I was doing huge amounts of the stunts and whole sequences and really enjoying that process. So I've definitely got better at that. And there's loads of stuff to do with the visual impairment, which is really fascinating and interesting, and another facet that you have to think about. So it's, in that way, it's a really fun, there's so much, it's such a gift really as an actor. There's so much stuff to think about, and sometimes you can feel like overwhelming, but other times it's kind of free, and it kind of allows you to just slip into that character kind of seamlessly.
Do you ever kind of like, you know, I mean, I find it hard to do a bloody squat these days because my knees are not what they used to be. I know I sound like an old fogey, I dress like a 10-year-old, but I am a little older. Like, you know, I do a squat these days and I'm like, bloody right knee. Oh, do you ever go, I am tired, I'm just sore, and you still have to bring it to set? Did you ever feel that?
Yeah, and I really understand like what athletes and sportsmen say now, and they're always working with injury. I feel a little bit like that. Like I'm at that stage now where my body makes a lot of noise. It used to be the suit that was squeaking, and now it's like, no, that's me.
You can kind of tell what age you are when you get out of bed and go, ah, and make a noise. It's just, it gets noisier to just get up. Vincent, what about you? Anything that you learned playing this character that you thought, oh, I'm quite arts, a skill that you thought, I'm quite good at this, actually?
So the longest time I ever played a single character was when I did Criminal Intent. And so this is like the second time I had an opportunity to play a character continuously for a long period of time, and it looks like it's going to be even longer period of time. So yes, that's a yes. But the difference is that Fisk is so different than me, and his posture and his voice and just everything, the way that I execute the character is so different than anything I played, and much harder than the character on Criminal Intent that I played. And so to be able to continue to do that, I feel like I'm getting better at Fisk. And so that makes me think, well, I'm happy about that. I'm happy that I'm able to figure out a way to play this character the way I want, and also to do it for an extended amount of time. But it's in our minds as actors, and I know Charlie feels the same way, is that it's always a struggle to achieve the best work you can. So I really don't think of it as me being great at it. I just think of me being able to struggle to do my best every time. And so I feel like I'm able to do that. I'm able to struggle, I'm able to be there for the struggle, and execute it somehow. So then I guess.
Thank you very much, guys. And you're both incredible. I love Daredevil, from the comics to the show, and I think you both do an absolutely terrific job. So one more round of applause, then we get to the fan questions. My dear, and what's your question?
Malcolm.
Hi, Malcolm, go for it.
I'm pretty much going to piss off this entire crowd, but and I know I'm going to be in a world of crap for saying this, but for context, 2019, Martin Scorsese said that the MCU films and other franchise movies are not cinema, and that filmmakers that do make cinema are Wes Anderson, Paul Thomas Anderson, and Greta Gerwig, Noah Baumbach, and a lot of many others that do movies for art. He's not saying that theme park movies are bad. It's just categorizing like they're still fun entertainment. It's its own new art form. And as someone who is an absolute MCU fan and a DCU fan, I wholeheartedly agree with him 100%. Because franchise films tend to play things safe, and while cinema takes a lot of risks and do some new storytelling innovations that we haven't seen before, and that each director has a unique style.
Malcolm, what's your question though? Sorry. Because there is a whole queue behind you, my friend. So please, should you just ask your question?
Okay. Do you agree or disagree on Martin Scorsese's comments on the whole cinema debacle?
I think that it's. See, when you ask that question, in my mind, I think of Martin Scorsese's a child in Martin Scorsese's family, right? And him saying that, and that child or that young kid or teenager saying back to his, whether it's his uncle or the grandfather who happens to be Martin Scorsese or whatever it is, like, it's awesome. Marvel is awesome. DC is awesome. Like, what are you talking about? And that's my attitude. I'll be the juvenile in this situation, and I'll say, sorry, it's awesome. Like, and by the way, I acknowledge the fact to myself that I'm in a very good position to say that because I've worked with some of the best filmmakers in the world.
Stanley Kubrick.
For one. and you know, I feel confident as I do, as the same as I feel confident in my friends that are in the same thing, that we know what cinema is. We can define cinema for you in our own ways, and we appreciate it. But, you know, I'm sorry, I can be 15 years old again and say, hey, this is awesome, are you kidding me? You know? That's how I feel.
Thank you, Mel. Thank you. Now, for the rest of you, please keep your questions to one question and keep it nice and short, please. Hello, friend. What's your name? What's your question?
My name's Hunter. My question is about, in the show, they were showing a lot of like foreshadowing to Styx Master, and I was curious like how he didn't really ever show up. Was there a plan for him to show up, like for in the show? And if not, who would you choose for an actor to play as Styx Master, like the?
I'm trying to think back and remember now. There was a kind of a post-credit sequence with a character called Stone. Is that right? Is that who you're talking about?
I believe so. Like
Yeah.
the faction that was against them.
I don't think there was. I don't know. I don't think. And also, you know, we didn't know how many seasons we were going to do. So I don't think there was any real plan to involve that character that I know of. It was more just kind of like a fun Easter egg. And I don't personally know much about that character, so I'm not sure I'd have a casting opinion.
Thank you very
Good
much.
question, though.
Thank you for your question. Hello, my dear. Yeah, just try and
I
get
knew
your
it was a
tiptoes.
long shot, but that was the only
Okay,
thing.
what's your name? What's your question?
My name is Sarah, and my question was, how was your approach to playing the characters in the Netflix show different to how you're portraying them in the MCU currently and in the future?
Oh, can you answer that?
I don't think so. Do you want to ask another question?
Maybe there is Hawkeye and She-Hulk, like you've played those characters before in the MCU, so like.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. Okay, yeah. I mean, from my perspective, doing She-Hulk, for example, was that I felt like if you took, I felt a little bit like if you took the character from the Netflix show and you put him in the tone of She-Hulk, he might be a bit of a bore, and like he'd become like the super serious one that everyone kind of makes fun of. And so I felt like it was important that Daredevil be part of the tone of that show. And it's also consistent with the comics. There are periods of the runs of the comics where Daredevil Matt Murdock is very lighthearted and fun, and there's a huge amount of levity, and I thought there was a really good opportunity to experiment with that. So I thought we should just lead into it, and without losing the integrity of who Matt Murdock is to me and my understanding of that character, also allow him to kind of spread his wings a bit and, you know, enjoy himself a little bit, you know, not take himself quite so seriously. So that's in relation to the She-Hulk show.
Thank you very much. Thank you. A reminder, no questions about the new stuff. Okay.
What new stuff?
Exactly. As we said, nothing stays in this room. Okay, my friend. Name and question.
Andre.
Go for it.
Well, my question is, are there any characters you two would like to interact with in the MCU going forward? Just like how you would like to.
I have a strong feeling that, and I've said this since I started the Netflix show, so this is not a big deal, that eventually I'm going to kick Spider-Man's ass. Look, I don't know that nobody's told me that's going to happen, like I have no idea, but I've thought this, Charlie knows, I've thought this from the beginning. You know, when the show got pulled from Netflix, Charlie was like, I can't believe they pulled it. I said, we'll be back.
It's true. It's true. Like 2 years would go by, and we'd be on the phone, and he'd be like, "Well, they're gonna call us." And I'm like, "Dude, I was thinking, buddy, you gotta let it go. It's over." Like,
I sincerely believe the same way about your question. I feel like, you know, for Charlie and I, there's only one way to go, and that's continue with the MCU. You know? The bosses, but
Thank
by
you.
the way, you know, we don't run the company, so there's you know.
Yet.
Hello, my dear. What's your name? What's your question?
My name is Valeria. I'm with Charlie and Vincent. I just wanted to ask, there's a lot of scenes in Daredevil for both of you that are really emotional and violent. I was wondering if it was cathartic at all for you to shoot any of this, or if you, afterwards, what you did to like kind of cool off post-scene. Just thinking about some of the things that that both of you had to do like on set in terms of that.
Wow, great question.
We're talking about in the context of the Netflix show.
Yes.
I'm sweating.
You know, there were times in the Netflix. I don't know if this is. I'm just going to say something. It may not answer your question. In the Netflix show, there were scenes between me and Deborah and me and Charlie and me and Vanessa that were very emotional stuff, and it was grounded in like reality and not. It wasn't in the superhero realm. It was more the human realm, and based on real human emotions and the human psyche and the human experience, like we all have. We all have the human experience together, and so when we're doing that kind of work in the Netflix show, when we were doing that, it was I felt that it was. I felt privileged to be able to play one of these characters and also be a human being, you know. So it affected me in a good way. Not only that, is that we had the support of the writers and the directors and the producers to do that. And it was really, I think that's why we're here today, because we did that on that show.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You know, we should also clarify that the Netflix show is now on Disney Plus, so you can enjoy it there. Maybe we should call it that.
Hello, friend. What's your name? What's your question?
My name's Andrew. My question was going to be for Mr. D'Onofrio. It was going to be if the Kingpin was going to be in the MCU going forward, but you more than answered that tonight, which is pretty exciting. So my question will be directed both.
I said, I hope. I said, no, I didn't say
You
I
hoped in
I
the
said-
form of
I said,
being-
that's what I believe in my heart of hearts.
That's what well, I hope what you believe is true.
Me too.
All right. So the question will be to both of you. Y'all both have these huge roles in the MCU. It's comic books. Everybody here is a comic fan. Did y'all have a comic book hero growing up, or was this new to you because you found a big role, or did you have somebody you like I like Punisher for a while?
No, not really. I didn't really grow up on comics at all. The only kind of memory, and I've shared this before, but I shared this at the Stan Lee event that we went to. But I have a memory. I grew up in the UK. I didn't really have. I wasn't really reading comics. I don't remember any of my friends in my group. But I do remember a period of being a pretty young boy, maybe 5 or 6, and I figured out that if my hands and my feet were like kind of sweaty enough, and I pushed them either side of the door in my bedroom, I could climb up the door frame. And I remember thinking, there's a chance, it's a slim chance, but there's a chance that I'm Spider-Man. And so he was obviously in my consciousness, that character, so.
Yeah, I did. I mean, I was, I'll start with Marvel because it's appropriate. I was Captain America. I was Punisher. And I was Batman and Swamp Thing.
Appreciate you guys working.
Charlie, did you watch the 90s X-Men show cartoon and the 90s Spider-Man show? We got that in the UK. I used to watch it Saturday morning, like religiously. The cartoons. Do you remember that?
I don't. I don't. I used to read a bit of Dennis the Menace. Dennis the Menace.
Yeah, my little brother liked Dennis.
Do you guys know? You guys know Dennis the Menace? I used to read a bit of Dennis the Menace.
Well, that 90s X-Men cartoon's now on Disney Plus. For those who are wondering. Hello, friends. What's your name? What's your question?
Can I just say that it's kind of fun to think that Daredevil was into Dennis the Menace? That works.
Yeah.
It works.
Hello. Name and question.
Hi there, my name is Aaron David, and so since 1963, Daredevil has changed and evolved so much over 6 years. So I gotta ask, as a big comic fan that you guys are now, and before, what was the most insane and badass moment you've ever read of Daredevil?
Cool question. God, there's so many.
Oh, that's a hard question. Good question, though.
There's so many. Just the first thing that comes to my mind. We shot a scene in season 2 where, and I can't remember all the details exactly, but I remember for some reason there is a handgun taped to my hand, and at one point I point the gun at someone. Even though the Daredevil obviously is into firearms, but it's strapped to his gun, to his hand. And we looked at the shot they were going to shoot, this scene, this bit, and we all got pretty excited because it's the cover from, Daredevil fans will know, it's the cover of 183, which is No More Mr. Nice Guy. And I just remember being like, really overwhelmed with how exciting and how cool that reference was. And over lunch, we were all on our Marvel Unlimited apps, rereading No More Mr. Nice Guy, reading that episode, knowing that we were filming a little moment that was a nice homage to that episode. So one of my favorite things is when we're filming this show is these little Easter eggs that I now am privy to because I've read probably all of the comics at this point. And so that was a cool moment. But there's been many.
And for you, Vincent?
That was so good. I don't have a better story than that.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. You look amazing. Hello, my dear. Name and question.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Olivia. I want to know, well, I don't know how to word this. So Matt has had a lot of different love interests over the different series, from like Claire, Karen, Elektra, Jen. Out of all those, which one would you, if you could choose any of them, like separate from the different series, which one do you think Matt would like be best with personally? Or who you like the best? I don't know. I mean, no.
I would like for Matt to continue exploring. I think, and what I mean by that is I think there's a lot of fun stories to tell still. I think there's, if you're a true Daredevil fan, maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, but I feel like there's probably no escaping that there's only one Karen Page. You know what I mean? And that's his forever after kind of one. Is my instinct with him. But that's a great question.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You also look amazing.
Thank you very much.
What's your name? What's your question?
My name is Taylor, and my question is, while filming any of these shows, like Daredevil, She-Hulk, Hawkeye, Spider-Man, any of them, was there ever a very serious scene, whether it was like emotional, like kind of scary, or just an action scene that you kept having to retake because you couldn't get into character because you were just laughing at something or another?
Right, your turn. Come on.
All right, Vincent, what do you think? A scene that you were just like corpsing, or oh, this is ridiculous.
So, yeah. So, Vanessa and I, in the Netflix series, were getting married. They did a scene of our wedding and stuff. That was tough to get through. It was tough for both Vanessa and I. For Ayala, the actress was an amazing actress. Number one, when you're shooting something, if it's the last scene of a night shoot, that's the worst time to start to corpse. Like, forget it. You're so exhausted that you cannot get control of yourself. And so the idea, Ayala and I became very close friends. She knew my wife at the time, and my kids, and we all knew each. We became friends, and so and we just liked it. We're both cancers, and we had a lot in common, Ayala and I. And so just the idea of standing at an altar together, getting married, for some reason struck us as being that night as the most funniest thing in the world. And it was ridiculous, and we had to literally like do takes where we would laugh and then we would stop laughing for they would get like a minute of film or of us not laughing, and they would say, okay, we got that section. And we'd have to do another take where we would try to get another section where we weren't laughing. And it was like, oof, this is like, the scene took about 3 times as long as it should have taken because we couldn't keep a straight face. And it's at the point, you get to the point when that happens, and it's happened a few times, I'm sure, with Charlie too, all actors that I know. The crew starts to go, okay, enough is enough. It's getting late and we need to go to bed. And you're like, I'm trying, but I can't stop laughing.
And it just makes you laugh even more.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so it has happened. And that's the one I remember the most. That's a good question.
Thank you very much. Thank you, my dear. Let's get through the line. Okay, hello, my love. What's your name? What's your question?
Hi, my name is Matthew, and I just want to start saying hello on behalf of my friends who couldn't make it here. I wanted to know, what was one of your favorite scenes from season 1 to film?
Okay, who wants to start? Charlie, your turn.
Unless you have some.
No, go ahead. After.
It might be that scene that Vincent referenced earlier on. I always loved that episode 6. It's not. I don't hear it talked about much. People often talk about the fight sequences or the overall journey of the characters, but I remember reading episode 6 of the first season, and that moment where we communicate for the first time, I found it to be, I remember the hairs on the back of my neck stood up when I read it, and the way that it came about. We weren't meeting, and it was over this walkie-talkie that had been kind of planted, and we had this long, slow conversation whilst I'm trapped in a basement with a Russian. And I've always felt that to be such a beautiful way to tell that first introduction. And we don't know each other yet, and we don't know, but we know we are antitheses, but also we're very similar. And I just remember really enjoying that, and we got to work together for the first time, and I just remember feeling like it was special. It felt special.
Thank you very much. Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, and for me, there were a lot of scenes like I feel the same way about the scene that Charlie was just talking about. And there were a lot of scenes like that where it might not seem like they were particularly, like to you guys, it was a particularly intense day or anything, but for personal reasons and for what was going on inside us at the moment, it was pretty cool. And so there were a lot of moments like that for me. It's just, when I think of the Netflix show, I think of 2 scenes. And that's the scene with Charlie in prison in the second season.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That
With you.
one.
With us.
Me and you, yeah, in the second season. And then, because that was the first time we were face to face with with our characters' stuff.
Yeah.
Pent up inside us. It was the first time we were able to get out how we really feel.
Yeah.
And so that stands out big for me. And then the other one was with Deborah. She comes to Fisk's penthouse and tries to intimidate him. And Deborah's quite an actress, she's not to be messed with, believe me. And that will always stand out in my mind, because Deborah and I never had a scene together other than that. We had a dream sequence that lasted like 2 seconds, and didn't really feel like a scene, but that was a real scene with real dialogue, and it had a whole, like 2 seasons before it to build to that moment. And, it's like the scene with Charlie. There's a combination of things that go on when you're an actor. You need a scene partner. You can't do it on your own to elevate you, to elevate the scene, to elevate the story. You need a scene partner for that. And on those 2 times, my scene partner showed up in this amazing way. So I'll never forget Charlie in that scene. I don't even think of me in the scene. I think of Charlie in the scene. And when I think of the scene with Deborah, I think of Deborah in the scene. That doesn't happen all the time in our business.
Good question. Thank you very much, my friend.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great outfit, friend. What's your name? What's your question?
I'm Kevin, and my question is for Charlie. So some of the most iconic action scenes in the Netflix or Disney Plus Daredevil now were those kind of single shot or single cut hallway fights. I was more curious, how much more challenging was it to shoot those compared to your typical action sequence, and did you have to train a lot? How many takes did it actually take? Any details about it, because they are amazing.
Charlie?
They take a lot of they take a lot of rehearsal, because you have to get them right in one go, and that's kind of the fun. That's kind of the art form to it. And they kind of became the thing we were known for. I don't know that we tried for that. Someone wrote a really cool sequence in the first season, and then we did a version of it in the second season, and then now we're known for it and everyone talks about it, and so in the third season we're like, right. But I remember the one in the prison in season 3 where they shut down production for a day and a half just so we could rehearse, which in production terms is a lot. It's a lot of money you're spending. You have to pay everyone for that day, and you're not actually filming anything. So we went up to that prison, we rehearsed for an entire day, and then we had a morning to finish rehearsing and then start shooting it. It's a huge, I mean, that was an 11.5-minute scene, and most of that is me. There's a big portion in the middle where I cleverly switch out with Chris Brewster, and he does all the stuff where that character just gets pummeled. I get to do the cool stuff, and then he does what they call the Rex, where you just get wasted. Yeah, it's just a really, and they're such fun days, because everyone really is feeling the same pressure and the same excitement about, can we get the best take? Can we get the take that we can use, or are we going to have to resort to an edit? Because the fear is it's not going to work and you have to edit. I will just share one quick story. We were shooting this one in season 3, and we kept on full starting. We kept on it wasn't working, or something would go wrong, and then we got one take all the way through, and it was good, but it wasn't great, but it was good. And there was this do we keep going? And we're like, we're gonna keep going. So we kept going, and then we couldn't get through it again, and something would go wrong. And right towards the end, there's about a 3-minute dialogue scene as part of the one take, right? It's part of it. And there was an amazing actor who was playing this I think he was playing a Romanian inmate, and we chat for a long time. But that comes at the end of all the major action. We're almost home free at that point. We just got to get through the end of the scene. And we did this take, and it was going brilliantly. Everything was working. Everyone's energy was up, and it was working brilliantly. But I changed something. I found a moment when I was off camera. I had one of the prison guards who was in the shot, but you couldn't see him. I had him to have a bit of fake blood, and I managed to get it from him when the camera wasn't on me, and put it in my mouth, and hold it in my mouth, so that when I entered the room with this Romanian guy, as I was thrown up against the wall, I was going to spit a bit of blood out, but I didn't tell the actor. And he was used to that not happening. He didn't know it was going to happen. So I didn't think I needed to tell him. It was just acting, right? So the camera comes in, the camera's on me, they throw me against the wall, and I spit the blood out. It looks awesome. And the camera's on me, but then it very slowly pans to this guy. But as the blood came out, I heard him go, "Oh shit!" And then the camera starts moving towards him, and then he's like, "Oh, what's my line?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, we're not." And then just before the camera gets to his face, he suddenly goes, "Hello, Mr. Barnard." And he's like, he remembered the line just split second before the camera got to him. But in the end, we were talking about it. I was like, "Man, if you'd gotten your line, the whole crew would have murdered you."
Thank you for your question. We've got no more time for questions. Well, actually, one more, and then everyone behind the purple jacket gentleman has to. I'm sorry. Don't look at me in the eyes. Please, just back to your seats. You can speak to these guys though at their booth.
Sorry, guys. Thank you though.
Sorry.
Thank you so much.
No, don't.
Thanks, Elaine.
No sad eyes. No sad eyes. Thank you so much. Can we have a round of applause for the fan question? Okay. Take it away, sir. One last quick question. What's your name?
My name is Chris, and given the absolute dumpster fire that was the film that we got in the mid-2000s, did either of you have any sort of trepidation about taking on the respective roles, just kind of for fear of maybe not giving the fans the representation of Daredevil or Kingpin that we absolutely wanted to have? Or did you have enough faith in the screenwriting process to say, hey, we know what we're working with, this is going to be fucking gold from French?
He's a clever dude. That's exactly the way I thought. It was because of the writers. You know, like, when they showed me a bit of what they were asking me to do, Stephen tonight, he showed me, that's the first stuff I saw of Stephen's, was he wrote the first season. That's what made me feel good about it. I'm like, oh, we're going to be okay. This is going to be cool. I will add, though, that when it comes to the fans, it's important that you guys let us know how important it is to you, because it doesn't scare us. What it does is it inflates us. And that's why we need you guys, because we want to rise to the occasion as actors. We want to make it everything you want it to be. I mean, I'll speak for myself. When I heard the interest in this show, and when I saw on the internet how people were wondering, what is it going to be? Are they going to finally do it right? Blah, blah, blah. The big thing was, will they finally do it right? And that just made me feel so good. I was like, yes, I'm going to do it. And to this day, I have to say, to this day, when what we were talking about before, about this kind of crazy mind that I have, where I just think everything's going to go the way we want it to, with the next series and what's after that, that's just the way that I think. But I think that because you guys are so excited about it. I knew that we were going to come back because it was the us being pulled out of that show pulled away from you guys reacted in such an amazing way that I thought, this is a business. They're not gonna let that go. And that's because of you guys. That's because of you guys.
Thank you very much for your question.
Thank you both.
Thank you. These guys are here all weekend, so if you were too shy or didn't get a chance to ask a question, I do apologise, but you could go see these guys at their booth if that's okay with you guys. You can ask questions there. I wanted to say it was an absolute honour and pleasure to speak to you both. I am a huge fan since the comic days, straight up to the show like these guys, so I absolutely love it, and I wish you all the best for whatever happens next. Round of applause.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Stay here for the stage selfie, please.
Look.